Hey, everybody, welcome back to the franchise. Back to back to back to back to back.
You've got to come back with me.
Where?
Back to the
Franchise.
We are here as always. Allow me to introduce ourselves. I am the one the Force foretold about. It's me, Timothy Glenn. And with me is my co-host. He's a person, and his name is Tanner Wilcox.
Just a person?
Well, it's the line from the movie. No, I'm a person, and my name is Anakin.
Oh, God. Ugh.
Get
that
it?
Joke, no, that joke went right over my head.
Can you...
You're,
Is there a better... Is there...
That's a
better
slave
line?
joke, is it not? Is that not when Padme's like, "You're a slave," and he's like,
all right. I'll give you a new one. I got an alternate.
Okay.
And joining me as always, a bigger fish, and this one is Tanner Wilcox.
No, I'd rather it be the slave joke.
Slave it is. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to our fourth episode of Back to the Franchise, where we are covering episode 1 of Star Wars and The Phantom Menace from 1999. Release date came out May 19th, 1999. It was written and directed by George Lucas. Finally, he comes back to the franchise. Anyway, guys, just spoiler alert right off the bat, we're going to be going all into it. We don't care if you haven't seen it or not. So if you haven't, watch it, come back, whatever. Tanner, I'm very excited to be getting into the prequel trilogy with you.
You know, this is really my bread and butter. The first 3 episodes, as fun as they were really a chore for me. So
I'm sorry you had a better time.
no,
about it.
that was a lie. The first 3 were super fun. The sequel trilogy will be a chore for me, but
Okay.
you guys, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for prequel time.
Yeah, this is where Star Wars gets a whole lot weirder, and I'm here for it.
Depending on who you ask.
Well, I mean, it is different from the norm, so that makes it weird.
It is. And, you know, I will say that I'm amongst the minority, I think, of people that like really enjoy these films. Do I think that they're like great movies in filmmaking retrospect? Like, no. But do I think they're great because I love them and they're nostalgic? Yes. And do I think that the story's more interesting? Yes.
Well, let's get into some of that nostalgia, Tanner. What's your personal history with this movie?
Okay, I have to correct myself because I think last episode, or not last, I think when we were talking about Empire, I made the mistake of saying that was the first Star Wars movie I'd ever seen, which is a lie because
Liar.
Phantom Menace was actually the first one I watched. It was the first one I saw in theaters. And then once I saw that movie and I realized that there was like other toys out there from the originals, flashback to the Boy Scout days, then I found Empire, and that was the first film of like the original trilogy that I watched. So just clearing that up. This was my first Star Wars movie. I was 7 when it came out, I think. 6 or 7. So like ripe age for space battles and laser swords, you guys.
I don't know if I actually saw this in theaters when it came out. I have a memory of people standing in line like around the block of a movie theater around the time this was coming out, and I think I attached that to Phantom. I don't know if we were going to the movie or not, but I would have been like 5, so maybe I saw it in theaters. I don't know. I do have nostalgia for the prequels because, I mean, we are pretty much the same age, you and I, but I don't have nostalgia for this movie in particular. Like, this movie is way divorced from my sentiments for Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, even though quality-wise they're way different in different ways. Yeah, I just, for whatever reason, when I had this one come on, like, I don't go, ooh, childhood.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, I get that because I do feel like they are a little, especially Phantom Menace is a little different than like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, because I can watch episode 1 on its own and it almost feels like a complete movie. But like if I ever want to rewatch Revenge of the Sith, I'm like, oh, I should probably watch Clones first. And then like I usually will watch those 2 together and leave off the first one, or I'll just watch the first one and not finish the trilogy.
Yeah, it does feel kind of separate from the other 2. Even though it's part of a trilogy, it does feel like its own installment. And we'll get into a lot of that later on in our review segment. But let's dive into the conception of this movie. It all started with a man named George Lucas getting into bed with his lady named Lucasfilm, and a movie was born. As we broke down in the first trilogy, George Lucas was very hesitant to make more Star Wars movies himself, that is, in the director's chair, because of the toll it took on him directing A New Hope in the 70s. So even though he ends up directing this one, he does first ask others again to see if they want to direct it before him. He's putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. He's like, hey, Ron Howard, you want to do this for me? Hey, Bobby Zemeckis, you want to do it for me? Hey, Steven, my friend Steven, you want to do it for me? And they all turned it down.
And I wonder, they all say that they turned it down because they just like couldn't do it justice, because there was such a big gap and it was so like when it was announced, everybody was so excited for it. And they just felt like they didn't want to like live up to the hype, or they couldn't. I think that all those directors didn't want to under deliver something.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what they say. They're like, nope, only this is your, brainchild. You're the only person that can do it justice. But I really wonder if that was the case. Or if they were just
I mean, this is 16 years after Return of the Jedi. So this is a good, generation gap between movies?
Oh, yeah.
So at this time, the franchise had kind of transcended itself and become more of a cultural touchstone than it was back in the 80s. So for them, it was even that much more daunting to pick it up after all this time, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, and I guess maybe that's what I meant. Like, it just built and built and built this fan base, and then you finally tell people like, hey, after 16 years you're going to get a new Star Wars movie, and everyone's losing their minds about it. But I mean, that's kind of like a lot of hype to live up to, so I think maybe they were like, no, it's a bit of a daunting project.
Yeah, so Ron Howard, Robert Zemeckis, Steven Spielberg all say no, although Ron Howard, as long as we're talking about him, would come back to direct a Star Wars movie, sort of, eventually, with the Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
He got brought on the last minute. We'll go into that. I'm sure that's going to be a whole can of worms to open when we get to Solo. Anyway, so George Lucas, when he was writing the whole mythos of Star Wars, the whole saga, he knew that he couldn't really do it in one trilogy. It was just too much storytelling. He even planned a sequel trilogy back then, but he came back to the idea of going back to the galaxy far, far away in the 90s as CGI started to become more prevalent in Hollywood and more of a common tool. Of course, that would be a tool that he used too much, but that's not hardly exciting. Hardly surprising that he'd be that excited about it.
And I'm like, if he had just waited another like 5 or 6 years when CGI was kind of like flushed out a little more, because I feel like 04, 05, 06, 07 CGI is like the best. I think it's better than now.
Yeah, it doesn't really get very good until the mid 2000s at least. So anyway, this movie doesn't get announced until 1993, so that's 10 years after Return of the Jedi, that George Lucas is starting to begin work on this movie and the prequel series as a whole. He got a way larger budget and special effects. Anyway, so he pulls a lot of inspiration again from a lot of different cultures. Tanner, is there anything you want to expound on that?
Yeah, I think maybe what I like about this so much is that George Lucas revisited this idea of like a prequel trilogy because he had a much like grander film in his mind. So he kept things the same. Like he wanted to start on like Tatooine again, so we get the Anakin scenes on Tatooine, but we're not in the same city that Luke is in. We're in Mos Espa, which he, drew inspiration from like the markets there to make it more of a like Tunisian style. And then I read a quote from him that said that this film series, and especially Phantom Menace, was supposed to feel more like a galactic period piece. So I think he put a lot more effort into like set design and costuming and pulling things from other cultures, which you see a lot in like Naboo and Natalie Portman's costuming. A lot of Queen Amidala's gowns are like Japanese or Chinese inspired. There, he pulled one like Japanese style and one Chinese like dynasty style and then kind of merged them. They're pretty similar anyway, but there's a lot of like Asian flair to her, which I think is cool.
Well, there's a lot of Asian appropriation in this movie.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about the Asian costuming, great. The Asian stereotypes, not so good. So I don't know. I'm a big period piece fan. So I think maybe that's why I kind of like it to this day as well, is because it does feel like a richer galaxy. It does feel like you get more individualism with like planets and people, pre-empire. I think the Galactic Republic is wealthier. I think people have more free expression, not under a dictatorship. So I don't know. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it definitely looks a lot different than the original trilogy in terms of aesthetics. And I guess that is kind of the point, in that, he wanted to make sure that you feel the impact of, like, if you're watching the movies chronologically, you feel the impact of the blight that the Empire has on all of these cultures across the galaxy, and how things just start to look shittier.
Well, yeah, everyone's poor. Like everything that comes from the Empire is like gray and bulky and kind of brutalist, you know? So it's cool to see some other styles. Plus, I guess I agree with George Lucas that he had a lot more freedom in design with what he was able to do in this movie and the scale he was able to produce it on. So
He also draws a lot of inspiration from more biblical stuff, like, for instance, how Anakin is also this kind of Jesus parallel. It's kind of the same way with Anakin as this kind of messianic figure.
sure, like his immaculate conception through midichlorians. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, a little bit more broad strokes with Lucas on this one. He also really improved the dynamics of lightsaber duels in this movie. Obviously, he has a lot more to work with in terms of budgeting and effects work, sure, but even the choreography of the fight sequences are also a lot more fluid and dynamic. I have a quote here that says they're more chess-like, a lot of defensive fighting too.
Yes, I read that too. And I thought that was interesting that, because Jedi are inherently supposed to be peaceful, they're basically like galactic police and they're supposed to keep the peace. All of their fighting style is supposed to be defensive. So they're never, even that duel with Darth Maul, like they're never really on the offense on that. They're always kind of like defensive strikes, which is interesting.
Yeah, it reminds me of I watched a bunch of Wing Chun movies about 5 years ago or so, and it's all about, like, defensive fighting. Okay, anyway, let's get into the casting of this movie. This is always my favorite part to get into. First on my list is Liam Neeson. I don't know if you would call him the lead of the movie. I mean, he is kind of a leading character for sure, but he's definitely the big name that they get out the gate.
I was going to ask, like in 1999 or 98 or whenever they cast this movie, I think Liam Neeson probably would have been the only big name actor, right? Oh, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson would have had, like, people would have known him, but
Yes, yes. And Liam Neeson, of course, at this point has already done Schindler's List, which really puts him on the map. And then I think he does a Les Miserables movie at one point too, before this.
yes, with Uma Thurman.
Yeah, actually, I haven't seen that one.
It's not very good.
Yeah, isn't there also no music in it?
Yeah, it's an adaptation of the actual novel and not the musical.
Okay, that's what I figured. I can't. He would sound probably worse than Russell Crowe.
Which,
No
well,
offense.
ooh, and as much as I love the musical, I was gonna say it's a lot more bleak than the musical, because there's no songs, but the musical's pretty bleak. So
Wow, even bleaker.
yeah,
Anyway, Obi-Wan Kenobi is Ewan McGregor, who conversely and more appropriately is much more on the rise in his career at this point. Like he'd done Train Spotting, which is his big indie film in the 90s, as a few years before this. He originally lost the role to Joseph Fiennes, weirdly enough. But apparently it came down to George Lucas's daughter, who rejected him in the next round of auditions.
yes. Okay, so when I was researching this, I didn't know that either. And if I was Joseph Fiennes, I'd be a little peeved because but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that George Lucas's daughter is like a casting agent or had anything to do like on the production of that film. But it literally, like in the second round, they were already like, "Hey, Joseph Fiennes, you get the role. Come in. We're gonna have you do like chemistry reads, even though you've already read with Liam Neeson." So it was just basically like a table read with the whole cast. And George Lucas's daughter was like, "Nah, I don't like him."
I mean, they picked the better actor.
Well, yeah.
Like, I mean, if you look at their two careers, and no offense to Joseph Fiennes and his work, but like Ewan McGregor definitely better. And Joseph Fiennes, I don't think because they filmed this movie in 97, so Shakespeare in Love isn't even out yet. So he doesn't have that kind of clout to go off of, aside from being the brother of, Liam Neeson's co-star in Schindler's List.
Yeah, I wonder if that was the connection there.
Maybe. Of course, next big name actor is Natalie Portman in this movie. Natalie Portman, much more on the rise as well back then. She'd done Leon the Professional, Beautiful Girls, probably some other things that I can't remember. Keira Knightley was cast as Sabe, who plays Queen Amidala's, what do you call it? Body double, the person who takes the bullet.
Yeah, did you know? I didn't know until until I had a broad understanding of who Keira Knightley was. So probably like post Pirates of the Caribbean. Someone had brought that up and they're like, oh, well, like Keira Knightley is the queen in Star Wars. And I said, no, it's not. It's Natalie Portman. And they're like, no, but like when in the scenes where she has face makeup on, it's Keira Knightley. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, you're just dumb and you can't tell them apart. And then to prove it, I went back and I watched the first scene where it shows Queen Amidala, which is Natalie Portman, like during the Naboo invasion. And I was like, see, you idiot, that's Natalie Portman. And then because most of the Keira Knightley scenes are when they're like transporting her or like in group shots. So unless you're really looking for it, you can't really tell. But yeah, I was real late to the party on that because I thought that was like a movie hoax forever. And I was like, Keira Knightley's not in this movie.
No, I was definitely late to the party. I didn't find that out either for a long time. Apparently, they look so similar, though, that their mothers on set couldn't tell them apart when they're both wearing the makeup.
Okay, so like I don't feel as dumb now because if I didn't get it through the TV as a 10-year-old and their moms couldn't tell them apart in person, I don't feel as stupid.
But I feel like they grew out of it a little bit because I don't really think of them as being like, doubles or twins, that kind of thing today. Maybe that's why it was so weird for me to find out later, because I never associated that with them with each other for a long time until I found out about this.
No, and I think maybe it's only like so similar when they have the makeup on, because that makeup is white face paint and then a line down the middle and two like red dots under the eyes. So it automatically draws your face into like a false sense of symmetry because you're looking at the design on it. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself. I'm going to pretend I'm a like psychology major. And I'm like, yeah, you're lured into believing it's the same person because of the symmetry of the face paint and not just because I'm an idiot.
No, I mean, if their mom can't tell, then, Also joining the cast as one of the younger actors is Jake Lloyd. Plenty has been said about Jake Lloyd in this movie. I know we're going to get to that. For now, we're just focusing on the casting. There were a lot of notable actors at that time auditioning for the role. Jake Lloyd at that point had done what's that Schwarzenegger movie? Jingle All the Way, which I don't know if you go off of it from that. You take him from...
I'm like, Arnold sucks as a dad in that movie, but the kid also kind of sucks. Like,
yeah, but he's also like 3 years younger.
I'm not he's acting. I just mean the kid himself. I'm like, dude, I know you want this toy, but like, give it a rest.
Speaking of not knowing who someone is, he couldn't tell his dad was Turbo Man.
Yeah. Who wasn't wearing symmetrical face makeup? Turbo Man.
Yeah, so in this case, they probably could have gotten a better actor to play Anakin Skywalker. Haley Joel Osment's name was in there, having done... Well, actually, I guess The Sixth Sense comes out the same year, so that wouldn't be yet quite a thing. You also got Justin Burfield from Malcolm in the Middle. Am I saying that right? Burfield?
Yeah, Burfield or Bear. Is he the older brother on Malcolm in the Middle?
I don't know. I never watched that show.
I think he's Frankie Muniz. I think he's like not the oldest brother because the oldest brother's like away in the army or something. But I think he's like the second to oldest brother.
Oh, okay. And then Michael Angarano, who we talked about a couple weeks ago with Sky High.
I'm sorry, Tim. Sky High's Michael Angarano. Sky High that you've never seen with Danielle Panabaker.
Still haven't seen it.
Actually, he's the worst part of that movie, but
I liked him in The Forbidden Kingdom.
He was also... What else do I know him from? He played Jack's son in Will and Grace.
Again, another show I don't have any reference for.
Bro.
Okay, moving on.
I'm hesitant to call you uncultured, but you're getting there.
well, sitcoms are not my forte. But to get back into big actors, we got Samuel L. Jackson to join this movie, and I don't know if there's a bigger actor in the 90s than Samuel L. Jackson.
Tell them who else auditioned for Mace Windu, because the two that it came down to was shocking.
Yeah, so I actually didn't know this, that Tupac Shakur was considered to be Mace Windu. I assume before he was killed. I assume.
Well, obviously. My God, because you like to be a casting director and you're like let's hold two headshots here. We've got Samuel L. Jackson and Tupac.
You know, I don't think I would have minded as much if it was Tupac.
I mean, I don't think he would have done like a bad job. I just think that for like, if I'm going to give my film credibility, probably Samuel L. Jackson. However, Tupac probably would have drawn in, the youths.
Well, speaking of draws, this next almost casting is crazy. Of course, we have as Jar Jar Binks Ahmed Best, who is really, that's what he's known for these days. But it was almost Michael Jackson.
Yes. Okay. I remember that being like something that my parents told me. They were like, oh, yeah, Michael Jackson tried really hard to be in Star Wars. And I was like, okay, whatever. But I didn't know that was like a confirmed thing. But he asked for that. Like Michael Jackson fought for that role really hard.
But he wanted to do it in prosthetic makeup.
Yeah. And, George Lucas with his hard on for CGI was like, nope, we can't.
Can you imagine the Misa, love you. Misa, go down to the... I can't do a very good Michael Jackson, but Misa, Jar Jar Binks. Misa, hee hee hee.
I'm gonna have to cut that just for the creepy factor.
That's probably like 8 layers of a racist joke stacked on top of each other just because of Michael Jackson. And Jar Jar Binks.
Probably. And then if you get into like which we will, but like the racism, the racial stereotypes that people correlated with Jar Jar Binks, plus then you put Michael Jackson doing like a Jamaican-esque accent, not good.
Then as the next big actor, big character, I should say, Ray Park is, of course, a big stunt person, but not so much a big actor. He was also known as playing Toad in the first X-Men movie. He gets the part of Darth Maul in this one.
What a Cinderella story for him, though. Because he was originally just part of the stunt team, and he was hired to do lightsaber duel coordination. He was an expert in sword fighting and like martial arts. And then they had cast Benicio del Toro as Darth Maul. Yes. And he quit because George Lucas majorly cut down Darth Maul's speaking role, because he originally had like a pretty big role in this film. And they cut a lot of his scenes to try to pull like a Jaws effect and kind of save his reveal until the end. And so Benicio del Toro was like, no, this is like a 3-line part. I'm out of here. And then they were just like, well, like Ray already knows how to do the fighting, so let's just throw him in makeup and give it to him. Like, I wasn't even an actor.
Man, here comes Benicio throwing his weight around even before he was really... I mean, he had done he'd done The Usual Suspects, I guess, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas before this, but I don't really think of him. When I think of him, I don't really think of his 20th century career.
No, I don't think of him in anything before like The Hunted.
Wow, what a pull.
Hey man, it was filmed in my hometown.
Yes, and we watched it and it was underwhelming. I couldn't tell where it was filmed.
It's mid.
Yeah. Although I guess while we're talking about Del Toro, he does win an Oscar for his next movie for Traffic, so,
Well, maybe it's good that he left. And, it opened like a weird door for Ray Park because, like you said, he was known for Toad in the first X-Men, which came out the following year. So I think, his Darth Maul role probably opened up some doors for other acting roles for him. I don't think he went much further after that because I can't think of anything else he was in besides Phantom Menace and X-Men.
So he got the role kind of by serendipity after Del Toro dropped out, but he didn't get the lines either. He ended up being dubbed over, and just like Prowse and everybody else in Star Wars, with Peter Serafinowicz, who I also didn't know was the voice of him for a long time. Do you know Peter Serafinowicz, Tanner?
No, but I'd like you to say his name 5 times fast.
All right, go ahead.
No, I'd like you to. I can't even say it once.
Peter Serafinowicz, Peter Serafinowicz, Peter Serafinowicz, Peter Serafinowicz, Peter Serafinowicz.
I mean, that's okay.
Who I know him as being Pete from Shaun of the Dead. Sean and Ed's roommate who turns into a zombie in the bathroom at the beginning.
What? That's
Yeah.
the same guy?
Yeah, they're like Pete, and they open the shower curtain. He's like, ah. He's also in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the guy who, calls them a-holes in the roundup scene. Yeah, he's in stuff.
What a weird, spotty career path for him.
Yeah. But apparently, I missed this note earlier, but Ray Park's voice as Darth Maul was considered, quote, too squeaky, so they had to dub him over.
I can relate, Ray. I can relate.
So, Emperor Palpatine, would you like me to kill them?
Yes, but do it silently.
I couldn't think of an actual Darth Maul quote to say. He has like two.
Well, that was also a very Mickey Mouse voice that you used.
Well, I'm very good at a Mickey Mouse impression. One more actor that I added to this list of notable people in this movie, not really notable characters, because Finis Valorum is the Chancellor before Palpatine gets, inducted as the next Chancellor, but Terrence Stamp, also known as Zod, plays him, the recently late great Terrence Stamp.
Yeah, the butler from the Haunted Mansion, 2003.
That was probably the first time I noted him too, and every time after I saw him, like if I was watching Yes Man, I was like, ooh, it's the butler. The butler did it.
Every time I'm like, oh, it's the bad guy from Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, great character actor. Really funny quote that I found about him. George Lucas described the character of Finis Valorum as, quote, a good man, but he's beleaguered. A bit like Bill Clinton.
He's just so tired, you guys.
He's so tired from having all these affairs. But he's a good man.
He's trying really hard to be a good politician, but he's so busy banging secretaries.
Speaking of which, I just watched the impeachment season of American Crime Story.
Yeah, hey, shout out Beanie Feldstein. Good job.
Yeah, it was good. It's good.
It was.
It made me it did not paint Bill Clinton very well, but Clive Owen did a good job.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, whatever. People can say what they want about that situation. I know retrospectively, a lot of people have reversed their opinions, and a lot of people really support Monica Lewinsky now. And she actually has a pretty good career going. You know what, girl? If it worked for you, good for you.
Monica Lewinsky looks at Google Trends, and then she sees a little blip when this episode comes out, and she's like, "What was that for?" Oh, you're mentioning a Star Wars podcast. It was. Don't worry about it. Don't ask me why you were mentioned on a Star Wars podcast.
You went down a Tanner rabbit hole. Weird.
Okay, so let's get into filming now that we have the cast all rounded out. I mean, at least the principal cast. Filming for this movie begins in June of 1997. And it ends in September of 97. So that's another 3-ish months, which is about on par with the last trilogy. Although in this one, they are filming this more than a year out. I think the original trilogy were only about a year ahead of time, but this actually starts 2 years before the movie comes out.
What a turnaround. And maybe I think that filming takes longer than it does. I mean, I know that most of the time spent on this movie would be in post-production and editing and special effects, but to film the whole thing in what was it, 4 months?
Just over 3.
3. That seems insane. When nowadays it takes us 3 years to get us 8 episodes of anything.
Yes. I just watched the second season of Ted, the Seth MacFarlane show, and he just said, we may not bring it back because it's too costly to make with the teddy bear.
What?
And I'm like, okay, I like it, but that's fine.
So go back to the old. What if they just made season 3 and then just used a teddy bear and had a puppeteer for a real teddy bear?
Yeah, let's call it Frank Oz.
Yeah, I was gonna say it'll be swapping Yoda from a puppet to CGI. Just do it in reverse.
There you go. Anyway, so this movie has a budget of $113 million, which today would be about $221 million. So this is where, that's pretty much ballpark today for a movie of this size to go over $200 million. So, but I mean, they knew that this is a for sure hit. So I don't think anybody was shitting in their britches over whether this would, get the money back.
Yeah, I feel like they had no problem loaning out for this one.
They primarily film, I guess, to speak to how much easier it was to shoot this movie. They primarily film it at another studio. In this instance, Levisden Studios in England. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Probably because it's the British's poor way of speaking, so they name things weird.
No, darling, it's Leavesden.
Leavesden. Of course, Leavesden.
We're just down the way at Leavesden Studios.
You know, if I had done that in an accent, I might have actually gotten there.
I think that British names are easier to pronounce in a British accent. Go figure.
Well, my mom keeps asking me how good Downtown Abbey is, so, you know.
No.
I'm just kidding. She knows.
She'd be out on the street if she didn't.
But for Naboo, for outdoor shots, for Naboo, they shoot in Okay, I'm going to do the accent this time. Cassiabury Park in Hertfordshire.
No, it's Hertfordshire.
That's right. Hertfordshire. Excuse me. Hertfordshire.
You can't say Shire.
Well, I think of like the Shire, so
it's Hertfordshire. Also, did you know that Cassiabury Park is like, I mean, it's huge. It's like a.
You mean Cassiabury?
Cassiabury, yes, over at Cassiabury, it's 175 acres.
I'm really good bad with measurements, so I don't know if that's a lot.
Either way, it's a really big park, but it's just like it would be the equivalent of like a state park here or like a county park. So it wasn't like so there was people just like walking around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure they had they only filmed when they first land on Naboo and they're like Qui-Gon's like running through the woods and bumps into Jar Jar. Like that stuff is filmed at the park.
Okay.
But just how cool to be like, hey, they're filming Star Wars over at the park. Want to walk down there?
I thought I saw some cricket bats in the background. Anyway, so the Theed Palace for the Naboo scenes was shot at, well, I'm not going to even try this in an Italian accent, but in Caserta Palace in Italy for just 4 days.
Which I don't know if that palace is like a private residence or if it's like a government building or just like a tourist building.
As the person who put this guide together, you don't know what it is.
No, I'm not an expert on Italian palaces, Tim.
It's a former royal residence.
Aren't they all?
22 miles north of Naples in southern Italy. So former. Looking at the Wikipedia images, though, I'm like, oh, Naboo.
So they basically just closed it to like tours for 4 days.
Yeah, sure.
Shockingly enough, the government wouldn't let them have real gunfights or explosions at the palace, so those were filmed on set at Leavesden Studios.
I believe it's pronounced Leavesden.
It's Leavesden.
Doesn't sound right. Anyway, moving on. So they go back to Tatooine in this movie, so they go back to Tunisia for the first time since filming the first movie. And guess what happened almost as soon as they got there?
Oh my God, was it another sandstorm?
The set was destroyed by a sandstorm on the third day of filming the Mos Espa scenes. Again, they go back to Tunisia, and well, I guess the first time they had a rainstorm, but this time, yeah, another storm completely just derails them a little bit.
You think that George Lucas would stop writing scenes or you have to go back to this trash planet?
Nope. In fact, Tatooine is the capital of Star Wars, Tanner, and anything that doesn't have Tatooine in it is bullshit.
Remember that when you bring up, what's that stupid planet that Rey's from?
Jeddah?
Yeah, which is basically a Tatooine.
Yeah, but it's flatter.
Dumb.
Anyway, so this is also the final Star Wars movie to be shot on 35 millimeter until The Force Awakens. I'm not like a millimeter kind of guy, like in terms of like what that even means, but
yeah, I was just going to ask you, like, what is the difference? Like, why would we know the difference between 35 millimeter film between this? Like, why is Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith different?
Like, dude, I don't know, but it has to do with aspect ratio. I don't get it. Like, I've seen movies in 35 millimeter. Like, I saw Scream last year in 35 millimeter, and that's like part of the appeal, you know, for like film nerds. I'm just not that kind of film nerd, you know.
Neither am I. I'm a poser because I don't know what it means.
Anyway, we mentioned earlier that the post-production of this movie was going to take longer than the actual production. And yes, the editing took 2 years to finish because of all the special effects. 2 years.
Good Lord.
Edited by Paul Martin Smith and Ben Burt. Can you imagine being Paul or Ben? Just being like 2 years later, get me out of Star Wars.
Well, Tim, that's going to be us for the next like 10 weeks. So I already feel like I'm there.
Well, too bad.
Get me out of Star Wars, people.
Tanner, did you know that they filmed 1,950 shots used for special effects in this movie?
I can tell, as I'm sure many viewers can, because it's 1997 through 1999 era CGI.
You know, when you said that, I heard what you said, but what I heard was, yes, he did, or he came extremely close.
For those of you who don't know, that's a Role Models reference. It's a favorite of ours.
Yeah, we quote that all the time. That's what I heard when you said that. It was the same like inflection.
Or you'll be in the slammer like MC Hammer.
Did MC Hammer go to prison?
Yes, he did. Or he came extremely close.
The opening sequence of the gassing of the Jedi is the only shot that wasn't digitally altered. The whole movie, the only shot they did not alter somewhat in editing is the gassing of the Jedi.
Which seems odd because there's a lot of like stuff happening in that shot.
Well,
I guess it's like before and after, because before and after you have CGI because the
droids.
You have like the ship landing is CGI. Right afterwards, when they get attacked, the droids and like the droidica like rollers, those are CGI. Huh. Interesting.
So yeah, a lot of post-production work on this movie. It was one of the first films that actually had to, figure out the relationship between practical and special effects, since special effects were just becoming a big thing at the time. And this movie does use some practical effects. One thing that they didn't have to really worry about in terms of mixing of the effects work is the pod racing sequence was entirely CGI. So the pod racing scene was originally 25 minutes long in the first cut of that sequence. 25 minutes. That's like, that is like Ben-Hur, basically.
And George Lucas wanted to keep it.
No.
Yeah, the whole thing. And everyone was like, George, it's too much. Like, you're a third of the way through your movie. We have a lot of story to get to. And he's like, no, it's great. All of it's great. Plus, the people will love it.
If it was like the finale of the movie, I might be more okay with it being that long. But in the middle of the movie,
because it already almost feels kind of long to me. Like, it's exciting. It's a good scene.
9 minutes. That's a long.
I'm not like bored, but it's a long chunk.
Yeah. The movie's already 2 hours and 14 minutes. So to add that 16 minutes back into the movie in the middle would be kind of an onerous task to watch.
Can I point out another fun fact about mixing practical and special effects?
Sure.
So in the pod race sequence, when they were filming the group shots of the grandstands, did you know, because they didn't have enough extras, they literally used cotton swabs and then just put different colors of fabric over them? So when you get, and I don't know, I think it's been fixed in like the Blu-ray, but if you watch the theatrical or like the VHS copy and it's the group, like it scans the crowd, it's literally just like, it's like bouncing up and down. And
because they couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah, it was far enough away and it was a quick enough shot that they're like, we're just going to like dip these Q-tips in color and put like little tiny pieces of fabric on them, and people, it's just going to be the crowd.
Well, they also didn't have to worry about like the internet being a thing back then and people like scouring the frame for, errors.
No, and nobody was like calling them out.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me, they were doing that. This didn't make the cut of the original, like this didn't make the episode guide for our original trilogy ones. But like the sequences from like Empire where they're going through the asteroid field, some of those asteroids were potatoes. And one was like a boot. Yeah. And that was a combination of them just like knowing no one would notice. And also one of them was like a result of one of the special effects people being like so peeved that they were, being worked to the bone. They just like, you know what? Boot in space.
You know what? Fuck you guys. Here's a bag of potatoes I'm emptying. I'm going to film it.
Oh, it's an asteroid field. Look at those spuds. Anyway, but to finish on the pod racing sequence, I mean, like, I would like to see that 25 minutes like release as like an extra, like a short film. That'd be kind of cool.
Well, and I wonder if they like fully edit. Like, I wonder if you could like get that whole 25-minute clip and have it be completely finished. Because I mean, if George Lucas saw the whole thing and wanted it in the film, I imagine that it's for the most part done. But that'd be interesting.
I'm Googling if it exists, if like a version of that extended scene exists. It says no. There's nowhere that exists that we can watch it. So pipe dream for now. But let's get into some more of the fun stuff. John Williams comes back to return for the score of this movie, and I don't want to get too into like the review part of this podcast right now, but that's probably the best thing this movie has going forward is John Williams coming back.
I'll bite my tongue.
He introduces, of course, the Duel of the Fates as the big, theme of the film. Like he didn't just copy and paste, so he actually does a lot of new stuff. We'll get into marketing. They spent $20 million on promotion deals with a lot of different companies for this movie. I mean, this was probably the biggest movie of the year in a lot of ways, of the decade, in fact. So they get things like Hasbro, Lego, Tricon, Pepsi to, do all these deals. So that's a lot of backload revenue for them.
Do you remember the Pepsi promo for this movie? Were you
No.
like old enough to remember it? Okay, I'll tell you.
Is Britney Spears in it?
Oh, I wish, but Britney Spears didn't get her Pepsi campaign until 2001. Okay. My grandparents always kept a case of Pepsi in the garage for like when the grandkids came over.
Mhm.
And I remember part of Pepsi's promo was if you bought like a case, which they used to not be the fridge packs, they were like the tall briefcase shaped packs. And I remember vividly there was always like a Phantom Menace character. So it was either Anakin in like the pod racing helmet, or Darth Maul, or Queen Amidala, or Yoda. And it was a marketing campaign where if you bought cases, every can had like a different character printed on it. So you basically had like collectible cans.
Mhm.
And when that movie came out, my grandfather like hid a case of Pepsi down in the basement and just left because he was like, well, we'll keep buying it for the kids, but we're going to keep this one down here because they're collectors.
Mm.
And it wasn't until my grandparents died in 2018, Tim, that we found that case of Pepsi down in the laundry room.
Wow.
Yes.
Unopened?
Yeah, they got thrown away, but I was like, you guys, we should keep these cans.
Yeah, sell them.
Anyway, but I remember that Pepsi promo. I remember buying Pepsis that had different characters on them.
Part where Obi-Wan comes over to Anakin before he, is going to do the pod racing sequence. And he's like, Anakin, are you ready? And he's like, no, I'm so nervous. And he's like, here, drink a Pepsi. And Anakin's like, okay, I'm ready.
Red Bull, if Red Bull had been a thing, they really missed the opportunity for Gives You Wings.
Red Bull gives you pod racing engines.
Red Bull frees you from slavery on Tatooine.
Okay, anyway, so yeah, this is a huge marketing bonanza pretty much leading up to this movie. In fact, the first trailer for this movie was released with the Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins movie Meet Joe Black in November of 98. And people reportedly just went to go see Meet Joe Black just to see the trailer. So boosted sales.
Could you imagine too, like, first of all, whoever decided to release it with, and I'm sure Meet Joe Black did well on its own anyway. That was like peak Brad Pitt,
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if you could backtrack the people who just bought the ticket, watched the trailer, then left.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much that would have hurt Meet Joe Black's performance.
Actually looking at it, I mean, it made $142 million in 99. And for a 3-hour movie, not bad, But it cost $90 million to make. So I still don't think it made a profit. Anyway, so yeah, this movie definitely boosts some box office performance, I'm sure, from, I don't remember the trailer coming out when I was a kid. I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw Bug's Life in theaters, but I don't remember the trailer.
No, but imagine a world like pre-YouTube. I know we were alive for a world pre-YouTube, but like we're so spoiled that we can just look up a trailer whenever we want.
Mm.
And like to literally have to buy a ticket to another movie just because you're like, oh, I heard that the trailer for Star Wars is on this movie. That's crazy to me. And then it was like a huge deal because when they finally aired the trailer for Phantom Menace on national TV, like who released it? It was like a thing. Like Evening Magazine had to like post it and people like tuned in to watch it.
Yeah. Can you the last time like a movie you were excited to see come out? Like, when was the last time you saw that trailer for the first time in an actual theater?
Yeah, I can't think of it.
Because nowadays you just like, oh, the trailer's out? Okay, I'm going to watch it now online. You don't actually you're not actually ever in the theater being like, what is this? Like, okay, logo. Oh my goodness, it's the new, you never have that moment of not knowing what you're about to watch.
I never first hear about a movie from the trailer anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And I watch pretty much a lot of trailers on YouTube, so there's not many that I see in the trailer for the first time at all. And if I do, it's, pretty indie, I guess. Anyway, Tanner, so we have done the lead up to our review segment, so let's get into the movie. Tanner, this is going to be the first one for a while where we actually watch this together.
Yeah.
We got to watch it when I came up a couple weeks ago for the new Scream movie, which let's not get into it again. But we got to, while I was there, just put on the Phantom Menace. Although I will say you had seen Jedi already in your watch list, and I had not. So I ended up watching Phantom Menace, then Jedi, then recording Jedi, then now recording Phantom Menace. So I've done it in kind of a weird order.
That's okay, Tim, because this movie is so well done and so memorable that you can't possibly confuse the two.
Well, before we get into those kind of thoughts, I will say, though, while we're still on the topic of us seeing it together, I think this is the only Star Wars movie you and I have ever seen together at the same time.
Have we watched Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith together?
I don't think so.
I don't think we've watched any of them together.
Yeah, I don't think I think this is the only Star Wars movie. Just said. Yeah, we've never watched any other Star Wars movie until now together. The Phantom Menace. Yeah. Because when the new ones came out, like, I don't know, I wasn't living there at the time, so we wouldn't have seen them together.
I remember who I watched those movies with in the theater, and it wasn't you.
Oh, okay. So do I. But, okay, all right, Tanner. So you're higher on this movie than I am. I think it's fair to say. So why don't you start with wherever you want to start with on this movie, and why it hits you in the nostalgia, what you still like about it, that kind of stuff.
Oh no, we don't have the time. I mean, like I said,
this is the bread and butter of the episode. So please go crazy.
It really is like so dear to me. It like launched my interest in the entire franchise. I used to play Star Wars with my cousins in the backyard. I mean, my first toy lightsaber was Darth Maul's. You know, it was just like the coolest movie to me as a kid. It was my first like foray into like movie toys. I mean, I remember I asked for a Darth Maul lightsaber for Christmas that year. I got it. I was stoked. I had a Darth Maul. It was so ugly. It was a Darth Maul tie-dye, like maroon and black t-shirt, and I had it in like the 4th grade, and I wore it all the time. I had a Naboo starfighter toy that was like a big one, and it shot like little blue missiles out of it. I played with that thing everywhere. I used to take it in the car with me and hold it out the window and fly it. Anyway, it just makes me, it makes me feel like a kid. And like I said, from an adult aspect, like, there's things that aren't great. So the CGI's not great. I think the script is really, there's a lot to be desired there, because I don't think that George Lucas is the best writer. For the good, I do like that you get pre-Empire like set pieces and planets and cultures that we've talked about. I think the costuming is awesome. I like most of the new cast in them. I don't know. I just think it's great.
I mean, it's not surprising because, I mean, this movie was even more than Return of the Jedi. This movie was a lot more made for kids. Not kids like explicitly. I'm not saying that only kids can enjoy this, but it's a lot more accessible to children.
Yeah, definitely. And I think some intention was definitely put behind that. I mean, I think that the character of like Jar Jar was specifically added to this movie for kids.
Well, he's your comedic relief character.
Yeah, and whether that was a good or a bad decision, I don't know. I mean, like, I understand why adults at the time were opposed to it, but like as a kid, as a 7-year-old, when I watched this, I thought he was funny. I liked it.
I did too. Yeah, at the time. And actually, my beef with Jar Jar isn't in regards to, I mean, I know that like there are some like racial controversies with the character's portrayal. I mean, I think that speaks for itself, so I don't really feel the need to go there. But as far as the way the actual characterization is shaped, I don't mind it so much. I just like I hate the way that the punchlines come from his physical comedy.
Yeah, and there's some of it that works. Like when they're on Tatooine and he has his physical comedy, like getting his tongue stuck in the pod race, like power coupling. Mm-hmm. That was funny as a kid. I think when he's like eating things off the food stall at the market and then he gets in trouble for that, like that's funny. So that some of the physical comedy works. And then when you get to like the physical comedy kind of at the end in the battle on Naboo, that's when it starts to get really like taxing for me.
But yeah, it is insulting to my intelligence for this movie to tell me that he single-handedly wins the battle by like Buster Keatoning his way through everything. Like he accidentally like unleashes like those balls and they destroy all the tanks or whatever, and then he's just like, oh, fumbling everything, and it just happens to like kill, or he's got that like droid on his leg and he's just trying to shake it off, but it happens to shoot all the droids
And
attacking him. Like
yeah,
it's just
every single
so
droid.
exceedingly stupid.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, that's a fault that I have with that movie, as is the backdrop, because that entire battlefield looks like the Windows 1998 Rolling Hills screensaver.
Well, where do you think they got it from?
Well, that's it. It has to be, even though I guess that's actually a real hill in California.
Is that where they filmed it though?
No, but yeah, that's that's where like the worst part of the movie for me is the battle in that field.
Yeah. Really don't like, and I guess so that's my Jar Jar beef specifically is with that sequence mostly. But while we're talking about that finale battle, I also, for a lot of the same reasons, really don't like Anakin's role in the space battle. And he too, I mean, I know he's the chosen one and he's gonna be this great warrior, but he lucks into everything on that ship.
Yeah, I mean, another thing I like, and I'll segue back into that, I like that at all times this movie has 5 major plot lines running, and I think for the most part it works because they do tie in together at the end. I do like the space battle in the finale of this movie, with the exception of Anakin's part. Yeah, he lucks into things. I think I also, sorry to Jake, but like the line delivery in just those scenes to me is really
Now
unbearable.
this is pod racing.
Yeah, he's a child actor. I'm not going to sit here and degrade, a child actor. However, it's not the best, but I do love the Feed Palace like segment of the finale. I think that's really well done.
With the blasters and stuff.
Yeah, like the whole time that Padme and her group is trying to like break back into the throne room to take control from the Viceroy. I think I love that. Of course, it leads into the lightsaber duel with Darth Maul. I think that segment's great.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the best part of the movie, and we kind of talked about. I have similar feelings as I said for Jedi, where you have this finale that is happening like in 4 different places at once, and one of them is great, or 2 of them are great, and the other 2 are not. So when it kind of cuts back and forth between these skirmishes, it's like, oh, can we go back to the lightsaber duel?
Yes, and that's the only time I feel it is the Jar Jar on the battlefield part. That's the only part of the entire finale where it cuts to a scene on the field, and I'm like, ugh, just go back to where you were.
Yeah.
I can deal. The space battle doesn't annoy me, I think, as much as it does you, but I can deal with it, but it's definitely the second worst.
I just like how he has like 5,000 buttons in there and he picks the one that like destroys the whole ship. And they just let him do it. They have no defense for a 9-year-old kid in a ship he's never piloted before with buttons he's never pressed, and he wins the whole battle single-handedly.
You know what else I've never gotten about that scene? Is that he hides in a Naboo starfighter and accidentally, like hijacks one. And then when they're flying, R2-D2's like, oh, we should turn around. And Anakin's like, I can't turn around. It's on autopilot. And I'm like, why would a Naboo ship have an autopilot setting for a Trade Federation cruiser?
Dude.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would unless you can autopilot across the board, like, hey, everybody, this is the coordination of what we're going to attack. Maybe that's the case. I don't know.
Maybe it's just a reason for them to feasibly get Anakin to the starfighter without having to be like without having to like fly like in S shapes all the way over there.
Sure, and I get that it's like a plot point, but it's, even as a kid, I was like, why would this ship be on autopilot to the bad guys? Like,
there's a lot of conveniences in this movie.
Yeah.
And I would be embarrassed if I was those the rest of the rebel pilots in that movie. Like at the end when they blow up the ship and the rebels are like, "Yahoo! Yeah!" I'd be like, oh, I just got shown up by a 9-year-old who's never flown a ship before.
Yeah, we're professional star pilot fighters, and we were getting our asses kicked in this 9-year-old child who was on autopilot and didn't actually even fly through this skirmish. Just one.
I also don't like and this is a trope in a lot of movies, like the idea that everything is being controlled by this one hub, and if you take out the hub, then everything goes, depowers and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a way for I get why screenwriters do it. It's to have the stakes be so insurmountably high, and then have a way to, when things seem bleakest, resolve it. But it's just, it doesn't make much sense for the Federation to have it set up like that. It's just dumb that like it's huge. It's a huge hole in their plan, their battle strategy.
Well, yeah, and maybe it's because like I wonder if each one of those Federation ships, just like controls a droid army that it's in a proximity of, because that's also not like that ship isn't like the Death Star of this trilogy, Like there's hundreds of Trade Federation ships, because once you get into Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and there's like dozens of those ships around multiple planets. So it's like, does each one just control like a little segment of droid? Like, why was that one so important?
Because
I don't know.
movie.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about the finale, and we're kind of going, we might have to backtrack a lot on the plot because we're only focusing on the last like 20 minutes. But let's talk about the lightsaber duel to get into a positive. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, they really. I mean, and when people say this movie's good, they're wrong. But like that is what they're thinking of. I understand that point, is that this is the best part of the movie, is the choreography and the music. The Duel of the Fates, we kind of teased a little bit earlier, is impeccable.
Sometimes if I have a bad day, I just listen to Duel of the Fates on my drive home from work.
Really?
It's in my Spotify Wrapped.
Doesn't seem thematically appropriate, but okay. I mean, it's a great piece of music.
You know what, Tim? You live the life you want. You
Sure.
really got to make it. You really got to make it what you need it to be. And Duel of the Fates is that for me.
But like the moment when Darth Maul debuts his double-sided lightsaber, not sure why he doesn't use it in the beginning of the movie, but that's fine. And when he debuts a double-sided lightsaber, like that is the moment, I think, when the fandom is, satiated, because they're looking for new, cool Star Wars. And when that happens, when he has the 2 lightsaber beams come out different directions, like that is like a really like cream your shorts moment for fans.
Yeah.
Battle, it just, the battle subsequent lives up to it until Qui-Gon dies. I will say that until Qui-Gon dies, then it goes off a cliff.
Yeah, that's a real
Literally
kill him.
Like, okay, I just like, what is with these like security like doors, like these force field doors that just like go on a timer? Like, what is happening? Like, it's just
the red doors,
the ones that keep them separated, that keeps Obi-Wan separated from Maul and Qui-Gon.
I'm sure you could like look up what it is, because I'm sure some nerd has been like, it's the power generator.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but it's a plot
I
device.
want to know why in every Star Wars movie is there like a giant shaft for people to fall down in the middle of every planet?
There's always giant shaft somewhere.
Like where do they go? That shaft is in the middle of the palace off the hangar. Like, what does it do?
Well, if you watch the Clone Wars animated series and find out what happens to Darth Maul after that moment, you will find out where that goes.
Okay, well, still.
It's basically like the sewers of Naboo, pretty much.
Well, that just seems wildly irresponsible that you would leave the sewer entrance as a 20-foot diameter hole with no railing.
Star Wars nerds, please correct Tanner in the comments. I don't know what the correction is, but I'm sure that it's there.
Anyway, moving on.
But yeah, like as soon as they get like sequestered in those security systems, it just, that fight kind of loses its momentum for me. I mean, Qui-Gon kind of gets taken out like a bitch, if I'm being honest. He gets dazed for a second by the butt of the blade, and then impaled. But then it gets worse when freaking Darth Maul does nothing to prevent his bisection at all.
I mean,
he just stands there like Obi-Wan like is hanging from the thing. He senses Qui-Gon's lightsaber over yonder. He does a flip, grabs it, slices, and the whole time Maul just watches him with a dumb look on his face like
maybe it didn't translate very well because I feel like it's supposed to be like a very quick, fluid, like Obi-Wan just jumps up and flips and slices. And it's supposed to be a lot quicker than I think it looks on camera.
maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not the best.
No, like even I would have a better reaction time than that, to say nothing of a Sith. But anyway, I mean, that's my only quibble with the, otherwise the finale is that part of the finale is the best part. And I mean, do we want to suck John Williams' dick a little bit more, or like in terms of the score?
Well, I mean, I can tell you the things that I like about it.
Yeah, please.
I think it's very interesting. It's actually not, I mean, to him, it's probably not that interesting. And for like the trope of the movie, it's probably not. But I like that he hides like little pieces of like the Empire theme, like the Imperial March, like in other pieces. So like if you listen to Anakin's theme, like there are like subtle hints at it, which I'm like, that's a nice little bit of foreshadowing that he wrapped up for us.
Yeah. I mean, he is the MVP of this movie, in my opinion. Okay, well, let's go back to other key moments of the movie. I mean, we should just talk about the pod racing sequence since it's the big linchpin of a lot of the marketing for this movie. I mean, again, pod racing sequence. I mean, even though it's kind of like doesn't really have a big part in the plot, aside from getting Anakin released from slavery, it still rips,
Yeah, it's great. And you know what? Like I said, as a kid, as a 7-year-old boy, it's awesome. It also like was responsible for, I don't know what, the launch of how many toy lines and Lego lines and video games based
Oh my
off of
God.
that one race.
The pod racing video game on the N64 was peak.
Yeah. Yes.
It was hard as shit though. Like that game is like, I could only get so far because that game really gets difficult. I'm like, this is for kids, you realize.
I only played the first, so I didn't have a Nintendo 64 growing up. I had a PlayStation. Shout out to Sony. Love you guys. My cousin had an N64 though, so I could only play it if I went to his house, and he lived like hours away from me. So every summer when I'd over there, I'd be like, dude, we gotta play this pod racing game. And he'd be like, I already beat it. And I'm like,
He beat
what?
it?
He beat it.
No.
I could only ever play like the first 2 levels and I got smoked.
Yeah, eventually I just gave up on that game.
Yeah,
I don't know how far I got, but.
And then like PlayStation had one. I can't remember what it was. It was like Battle for Naboo or like Naboo Starfighter. But it was a game where you played as like a Naboo Starfighter and you just flew around in space basically. And it was, I think, a little easier than the pod racing game, but it was a lot more boring.
I don't think I played many other Star Wars games back then besides Pod Racer. But since you played it so much, what was your go-to character?
Anakin.
You play as Anakin?
Yeah. I just liked his pod the best.
No, that's fair.
And like some of them, I tried to be like Sebulba one time and it was too bulky.
If Sebulba is your main, that says something about you. I don't want to play with you.
Well, yeah, he's not my main, but I was always the kid that wanted like the villain stuff. Like villains were like Darth Vader was always my favorite character. Darth Maul was my favorite Sith. Like I was always like a villain kid. So I wanted like the Sith lightsabers and I wanted the Darth Vader helmet, and I don't know what that says about me now, but
my guy in the game was Nevaki because he was small and I was small and I related.
Is he the little like gecko guy?
Yeah, he's got like a beak of some kind. We were trying to pinpoint him in the movie, but I can't find it. I don't think that's why I picked him. Like, I just like the look of him in the game.
Yeah.
I can hear though in my head, like even though I haven't played that game in like 20 years, I can hear what it sounds like when he crashes to this day. It's like that crashed a lot. Anyway, but yeah, the pod racing scene, great. No, it's really.
Are there any scenes, Tim, that you think are just like unbearable besides like what we've talked about in the third act? But is there anything that you like? Are there any like set pieces that you don't like, or like other characters that you just don't vibe with?
I mean, set piece wise, not so much. I mean, the first set piece with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, I think, is a good introduction to the Jedi and, the types of henchmen they're fighting and the droids, and it establishes their rapport. Like the opening of the movie is fine for me. It's just once they get to Tatooine, this movie comes to a dead halt for me. Like it's the most boring part of the movie, and I can't.
I also don't love Tatooine in this one because it does a really good job, I think, of keeping the pacing up until then. Like, you're getting kind of a lot thrown at you. You get the introduction of the Jedi right away. There's a little bit of action with them and fighting the droids and that ship getting blown up, and then they have to escape and they land on Naboo, and then there's the invasion. So like all that's happening in the first 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting kind of a lot of plot pieces thrown at you.
A lot of expositional dialogue in this movie in terms of the Trade Federation stuff. And it does, get, a little bit of criticism today, even for that kind of stuff. Like, can't wait to get back into Star Wars after 16 years. And George Lucas is like, look, here's some Trade Federation stuff,
Yeah, I will say, like, and as a kid, I didn't really even know what the plot of the movie was because I think it's too heavy for like kids. Not really heavy even. It's just too, like, I don't understand the geopolitical strife of intergalactic trade routes. Like,
it reminds me of a quote that George R.R. Martin said about Lord of the Rings when he was basing like how Game of Thrones would relate to Lord of the Rings, and he was like, Game of Thrones is for people who were watching Lord of the Rings and saying, yeah, but what's Aragorn's tax policy? Something like that, and that's kind of how I feel George Lucas came towards the plot of these, especially this one, but all the sequels.
So who's going to pay to rebuild Minas Tirith after the war? How are we going to get that done?
Pretty much, yeah. Whereas, Tolkien was like, no, who cares? Just battles. It's fun.
He's like, yay, it's magic.
We don't need the minutia. But no, I'm not trying to slam while we're saying I'm talking about Game of Thrones. I love Game of Thrones. I think it's fascinating. I read all the books. But here, I'm not quite as so interested in George Lucas's version of that.
Yeah.
But I guess to get into the stuff that really doesn't work for me in regards to Tatooine, we kind of know where it's going. It's going to end with Anakin being freed, and joining the Jedi because that's, it's a prequel. We know that's going to happen. So I just, to start him off as a slave and then to have like a whole, third of the movie be about how do we just get him an unenslaved, like, which is a weird like thing, like you're Jedi. Slavery should be a crime to you, right? Like you shouldn't even have to. I don't know.
Well, and they talk about that too, because when they talk about him and his mom being slaves, Padme is like, well, how can that be? Because slavery is illegal in the Republic. And the mom's just like, the Republic doesn't exist out here. And I'm like, isn't that what the Jedi are for? To like enforce human rights and the law?
Come on,
like,
guys.
You guys have just been ignoring this poor planet that's been delved into slavery for hundreds of years. Good job.
Yeah, really doing your work.
Yeah.
So I just don't really get why we're spending so much time on this subplot. I hate to say it. I hate to say it because it's been said to death ad nauseum, and we'll get into the whole the legacy of this movie to real detrimental effect. Jake Lloyd is hard to watch in this, and I'm sorry to say it, but he is.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to relate to Anakin as this childlike surrogate for the movie who, sees the world and with big bulgy eyes, and you're supposed to invest in him as a character. And I can't, because he's just so wooden and whiny. I hate him. I hate Anakin. I don't hate Jake Lloyd. I hate Anakin's portrayal in the movie.
I can agree with that though.
Yeah. So all of the stuff in that second act just grinds the movie to a dead halt for me. And it's my least favorite part of any Star Wars anything is that sequence on Tatooine, that long sequence. And it kills the movie for me. I mean, there's other reasons why I don't like this movie, but that's the biggest one, is just the second act is just, aside from the pod racing scene at the end, of the second act. The second act is a blah for me.
The other things I do like, not to bash Jake Lloyd, but like I think everybody else does really well with what they're given. I think Natalie Portman is stellar. Rewatching it as an adult, I kind of forget how little Obi-Wan actually does in this movie. Like Ewan McGregor doesn't have a lot of lines. He's just kind of there up until the third act. And then of course, you know, he takes his place in episodes 2 and 3 as the master. Him and Liam Neeson, I think, do great. Samuel L. Jackson's great. He only has one scene in this one.
It's weird to cast, though, since we're talking about Samuel L. Jackson, like the guy from Pulp Fiction, to play. You know, it's really out of character for him.
To play like a peace officer?
Yeah, well, not just a peace officer, but a stoic one, you know? Like,
yeah.
A really, like, neutral-toned, solemn guy is not what you normally see from him. So it is strange for me. I don't think he does a bad job at it. I just think it's a weird choice, you know?
One, he's so by the book, his character, because Mace Windu is very much like when Qui-Gon presents Anakin to the council and he's like, I think we should train this boy. I want to take him on as a Padawan. And Mace Windu's like, nope, he's too old. Nope, his midichlorian count is off the charts. That's unheard of. Nope, he misses his mom too much. Like, he is very like by the book and by the rules, and he stays that way through the whole trilogy.
Yeah, he's the buzzkill of the Jedi Council.
Yeah, he kind of.
I mean, I know they're not partying it up, but if they were, he'd be the one they don't invite.
Yeah, he's always the negative Nancy.
Yeah. In our version, I guess we should mention, since we're talking about the Jedi Council, we watched the version with Yoda as a CGI character. But of course, in this movie, or in the original cut, it should be mentioned that Yoda was originally a puppet, again, like in the original trilogy. And then, well, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself because at least we're talking about new versions. But while we're talking about how it's, you know, effective in the movie, you know, part of my nostalgia is tied to Yoda as a CGI character. It's just what it is, you know? So I'm fine with it, honestly, like them overdoing it. Cause I think I've seen the version where he's a puppet in this movie, and I don't know. It just seems weird when so much else is CGI. Like Jar Jar looks, I mean, for 99, he looks great for CGI, you know?
Yeah.
And most of the CGI does look great for 99. And to have a puppet all of a sudden, it just, I know he's a puppet before, but it's incongruous for me, I guess.
Yeah, it's a change that, like, there's very few George Lucas CGI changes that I'm like on board with. But this one I'm fine with because I had the VHS when this came out. And in the VHS copy, he's the puppet. I don't think it was until the Blu-rays came out that they changed that.
But it's pretty seamless, you know. And
yeah, and I think
it
it's
works fine. And Yoda's not like, it's not until the next one that Yoda actually gets a lot to do. I think is he only in one scene in this movie, or like, but they're both in, or two scenes, and they're both in like the Jedi Council chamber or whatever.
Yeah, he's in the Jedi Council chamber, like when they're introducing Anakin and debating on whether or not they should take him on. Mm-hmm. And then he has a scene at the end, at like Qui-Gon's funeral, when they're talking about, you know, like the possible return of the Sith.
Yeah, so it's not like it's not like he was crucial to the movie. Changing that element would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into, now that we've done our review recap, let's get into the aftermath of this movie's release. Since this movie was 16 years in the making, I guess you could say, there was, you know, a lot of anticipation and expectations of the movie. We were a little bit on the young side to remember a lot of that excitement, but I think the fact that we do remember some of it speaks volumes, you know?
Yeah.
How big of a deal this movie was when it came out. It came out it was released at 12:01 a.m., I'm told, on May 19th of 99. Just over 2,000 movie theaters in North America.
Oh, God, do you remember midnight releases?
Oh, and I wish they would come back. Yes, I love those.
I miss them so much.
I saw The Avengers, the first one, at midnight, and The Dark Knight Rises the same summer of 2012. And that's kind of when they started doing that. And it was, and then you would get there and they'd have like 6 different screens going at the same time for the same movie. And then you'd all get out around the same time. And then you'd run into your buddy who's like, oh, I didn't know you were here. And you'll talk about the movie together. You know, it's.
Wait. Do you say that's when they started doing that for like?
I don't know.
Releases?
That was the first time I did that, at least.
No, because I remember like this movie was a midnight release.
Well, yeah, this one was, but yeah.
Because I don't remember. I think the first time I remember like waiting for a midnight release was. It might have been Revenge of the Sith, actually, live.
Oh, well, maybe
And
I
then I
didn't.
waited. Go ahead.
Maybe I didn't do that kind of stuff until I was 18. So I don't know, but
Yeah, because I waited. I remember waiting with my cousin for Revenge of the Sith, and then I sat in line for the last couple Harry Potter movies too.
it becomes more and more of a prevalent thing as like the 2010s roll on. And nowadays, like it's slowly gone from like releasing the movie on Friday at midnight to, okay, now we're going to have a showing on Thursday at like 9 p.m.
Yeah, or
And
like
nowadays
7 o'clock.
everything opens at like 4 p.m. on Thursday. So there's like no, they just bump it up a whole day. And they still say releasing Friday, blah, 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 you know, but it's like, no, it's releasing Thursday now. Like you just say Thursday.
Yeah.
So I miss the days where movies like actually came out at midnight. I mean, not I don't need every movie to do that. Like I'm not gonna go see like I don't know, Minders of Him at midnight. You know, the new one coming out just to think of a level movie. Like no one's gonna like gear up to see that Colleen Hoover adaptation. But like you know, but for the big movies, it'd be cool to go at midnight. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish they still did it for wide releases. And just a plug, I'm currently reading Reminders of Him. I have 23 pages left. I wanted to get it done before the movie came out.
Okay. Anyway, so this movie opens the same week as The Love Letter and Notting Hill. One of them I know, and one of them is Notting Hill. Wait, no. Sorry. One of them
What?
I don't know. One of them I don't know, and one of them is Notting Hill. I have no idea what The Love Letter is.
No, I was going to say, I wonder which one was the commercial success because I've only heard of Notting Hill.
Well, we've watched Notting Hill together.
Yes.
Classic.
Notting Hill is great. The Love Letter was a commercial failure as well as a failure for me because I've never seen it or heard of it.
Starring Kate Capshaw, Blythe Danner, Ellen DeGeneres, I'm just looking it up now, Julianne Nicholson, Tom Everett Scott, Tom Selleck, and Gloria Stewart. Romantic comedy.
I mean, there's good people in it.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's going up against a way bigger rom-com. So, like, I don't know why they released it with Notting Hill. But it's great that Notting Hill, like, also does well. You know, it's a great movie.
Well, yeah. And like, again, we talked about this. Do you remember a couple episodes when we talked about how 9 to 5 followed, what was it, Empire?
Yeah.
And we were like, can you imagine a day where like a musical comedy follows like a huge blockbuster like Star Wars? And here we are, because Notting Hill kept second place for like weeks after Phantom's release, and it competed pretty well with it. And I'm like, look at you, Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts.
Well, that's like good, like, you know, pre-Barbenheimer counter program. Like they could have called it like the Phantom Hill, you know, like, oh, we're going to do the Phantom Hill double feature or Notting Menace. Anyway, so the movie, this movie is obviously a huge hit. It grosses $475 million domestically, and then also $1.04 billion worldwide. Was this the first billion-dollar movie?
I don't know.
No, Titanic. I guess Titanic would have been.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Titanic. So yeah, but again, this is a time when that's, you know, still not very common for a movie to hit $1 billion. I did not update that for inflation, which I know everyone loves this part where I adjust for inflation. So I'm gonna do that really quick. So today, domestic, that'd be 931 million. And worldwide, that would be 1.004 billion. That'd be over 2 billion.
Wow.
Big hit. Anyway, this is the highest grossing movie of 1999, of course. It breaks the highest opening weekend record with 64.8 million. It dethroned The Mummy, which I think that's the same year, too. 99, yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
I can't wait for us to do, by the way, since we're talking about Mummy, I have Mummy on the schedule for 2 years from now because The Mummy 4 has a release date. So we're doing that shit.
Good. We can talk about how every single character is the sexiest person alive.
Even Jonathan?
No. Okay, the top like principal 4 characters.
Is he one of the principal 4 characters?
No,
he's like the third build.
Well, that's true. Okay, I'm talking about like the 2 heroes and the 2 villains.
Okay, gotcha. Sexy mummies. Anyway, yeah, so this was a big hit. It's also the highest single day gross, new record that was broken. It breaks the record from Lost World Jurassic Park, which they messed up the title for that one, by the way.
What do you mean?
Well, they call it The Lost World: Jurassic Park instead of Jurassic Park: The Lost World.
But that's how that's how the title of that movie goes, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
That's probably why it broke the record.
Plus, Tim, Julianne Moore's in that movie, which makes it trash.
Our first mention of Julianne Moore on the podcast. Tanner hates Julianne Moore, for people if you don't know, and it's one of the running bits of like his bigotry or whatever. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me because she's amazing. Anyway, so this it comes out on VHS rather April 1st of 2000, which almost a year later, which is not the norm anymore. And DVD not until October of 2001. But it was the fastest selling DVD of all time. 202 million copies sold in its first week. But it lost that record pretty quickly to Shrek with 2.5 mil.
Wow. I forget about that. Like how long you had to wait for a movie to come out after a theatrical run. I mean, it was always a minimum of like 3 months before you could rent it or buy it. But I mean, I guess it makes sense that the VHS would come out first because I don't think DVDs came out until 2001, right?
I don't know.
Like, I mean, I know the DVD release for this was 2001, but I don't think DVDs were like a thing until 2001.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that the next big movie to come along would usurp it just because the technology and the format is just is still rising,
Well, and back then, like, everybody was buying DVDs.
Although I should correct myself because I said 202 million copies were sold in the first week. That should be $2.2 million. 2.2 million copies.
Yeah.
Because I was like, when I said that, I was like 202 million copies, and then it lost the record to Shrek, which got 2.5. And then I was like, wait, those numbers don't match up. Anyway, so yeah, let's get into the response of this movie. So we kind of talked about how audiences really enjoyed the original trilogy. This one, reactions were a little bit mixed, and they, kind of still are today, critical and audience reactions. I mean, but it kind of had the impossible task to be fair, that it was, like the most hyped movie of the, of filmmaking history of the time, at least. And so that expectation was really high.
For sure. And I mean, you can say the same thing now, is that like when you have so much hype around something, it's impossible to please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of a legacy problem for this movie, is that it got so much backlash for being overhyped that I think that just kind of trickled down until you got to people, our age. Maybe not you, but like me, who enjoyed it as a kid. And then as adults, we've kind of learned to flip the narrative and say, like, no, we enjoy this movie for what it is. These movies are important to us. This film is special to us. Like the backlash that you gave originally, and especially to like the actors, is so unfair.
I don't think so.
I do.
But speaking of the actors, the script and the dialogue was one of the biggest criticisms of the movie. But that's not really a surprise. That's gonna be a running theme for all of Star Wars. It was a thing back in the 80s with the original trilogy. It's gonna be a theme for the next two movies too. That George Lucas doesn't write great dialogue.
No.
And a lot of his direction for these actors. And if I am being fair, a lot of his directions for these actors is play it very straight. You are a really heightened intelligence from outer space. You don't have personality,
Yeah, which just, I mean, it doesn't translate to film and emotion well.
Yeah. I have on here that it ranks 8th out of the 9 Star Wars, the main Skywalker saga episodes, Star Wars films, right behind The Rise of Skywalker as being the lowest rated. This is for Rotten Tomatoes, right? Am I right in thinking that?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, in fact, the score for this movie has risen over the years. I'm going to look at what it is in particular. Phantom Menace right now. And I don't want to like get into like Rotten Tomatoes like as the end all be all but it is like one of the major metrics for, movie evaluation. Right now it's at 54%. So, it's kind of right hovering that fresh rotten binary. Audience rating is 59%. So also rotten, but still very close. So yeah, that was probably the biggest criticism, was the dialogue and the script, but there was plenty of things that people found bad about it in a non like movie going way, like not aside from like, special effects, score, like the normal things you would evaluate. A lot of people found these racial stereotypes to be a little big detractors, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't pick up on that as a kid, but even just when we rewatched this movie together, you know, I think right at the first like Trade Federation lines, we were both like looking at each other like, oh, this seems a little racist.
Yeah, I think I was doing some research, and I think that the particular accent that those Trade Federation guys speak in is Thai. Like that was the basis for it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come off well.
No, and yeah, there's a couple other ones too. And then I like with Jar Jar, there's a big correlation of him having kind of like a Jamaican accent and then the style of his like ears, I guess, that hang from his
Mhm,
head. Like there
mhm.
was criticism when the movie was released that they resembled dreadlocks too closely. So it's like we obviously have a black actor who is speaking in a, Jamaican accent with dreadlocks, and you made him kind of the buffoon of the film series. There was a lot of people that defended that too and said, "No, I think that's really overreaching." And then I think even I don't remember which there was a critic comment that said, "I think that people should look more closely at what they're saying as a reflection of like their own racism."
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty blatant. I can't say that I connected all of those dots you just mentioned definitely not as a kid, and even now. I mean, I guess they don't have a problem with they have a problem with Jar Jar is his dread stand-in, but like when you have like, the Predator characters from the Predator movies have actual dreads, like that's not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if maybe it was just like a negative stereotype because it's like,
The
you
character.
know, Ahmed Best was one of only like two principal black actors in this film, and he's not. He's basically doing voice work, so you only have one principal black actor, and then you kind of make him like the buffoon character, I think was maybe the problem with it.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I mean,
I mean,
I don't know. I wasn't there.
and just to speak on Watto really quickly, I mean, he's a pretty he's a pretty blatant stereotype too.
Are you talking about like the Jewish stereotype? Yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah, not great, especially for a character. I mean, it's one thing for Jar Jar to be a stereotype, but also be what was intended to be an endearing character. But then you get Watto, these Trade Federation guys who are meant to be despicable. So it almost like I mean, I'm not these demographics, so I can't really say, but I feel like it would sting harder.
Yeah.
So let's get into the legacy portion of our podcast. Again, this is probably where we get into the toxic fandom of Star Wars. I mean, which is still really prevalent today. It pretty much starts with this movie that has huge expectations on it, and then not meeting those expectations by quite a margin, and the backlash from that is definitely it goes too far in a lot of respects. And so yeah, this movie's still controversial in the fandom today, but back 20 years ago or more, like it was even more so. And in fact, it had some really terrible effects for some of the people caught up in that backlash, particularly for Jake Lloyd and, as you mentioned, Ahmed Best as Jar Jar Binks. They did not get a very good shake after their involvement with this movie, and it's really unfortunate. Jake Lloyd dealt with a lot of bullying at school. Ahmed Best also got a lot of hatred, really undue, and it really, I mean, without going into the minutia of what they had to deal with, it really affected their lives in a negative way.
Yeah, I think it's really sad because what a cool thing to like book as like a child actor. But like I can just imagine like Jake Lloyd being like, "Wow, I beat out what 30,000 people that auditioned for this, and he beat out some pretty notable like child stars for it to kind of really negatively impact his life." And he quit acting after this.
Yeah, and he's had a lot of personal struggles too,
Yeah.
both mental and in terms of the law. So it's really sad. I mean, we're kind of at this place, I feel like now we're kind of at this place where we're treating child actors a little bit more fairly. Do you remember that Firestarter movie that came out a few years ago, the remake?
Yeah. The Zac Efron one?
The girl in that, her name's Ryan Kiera Armstrong, got nominated for a Razzie for that movie. And when that happened, everyone was like, you're picking on a child. Like, and
Yeah.
They actually rescinded that nomination after that, and so I feel like nowadays, and that's a recent example. So obviously it's not too recent or too long ago, but I feel like nowadays we're a little bit more protective for. I mean, because these are kids after all; they haven't been acting for that long. For one thing, and two, they're still developing, and their psyches are fragile.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're also developing their skills. It's like I don't expect every 8-year-old to be an Oscar-worthy actor. Do I think that for like a lead character, you should have some ability? Well, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I said I don't like Jake Lloyd's performance in this movie, but I mean, he doesn't deserve all of the blame. I mean, part of the blame has to come on the dialogue. Some of the blame has to come to the casting department for not casting the right actor, because I don't think he is the right actor. Sorry to say, so you have to think that I mean, there's a lot that goes into a movie production. It's hard to pin it on just one person.
Sure. Yeah.
And the same goes for Ahmed Best, who he went through a lot of his own depression after this movie came out, and the criticism he received that was really undue. But I mean, he's definitely I think he's come out of it at this point. He's doing better nowadays. He had that cameo in The Mandalorian. Did you see that?
Yes, and I mean, because that was a big deal back at I don't know what it was, like a D23 or like a Lucas Con or something where um like maybe it was the announcement for like the Obi-Wan series on Disney Plus. Uh, but like George Lucas was there and kind of touted like Jar Jar Binks as his favorite Star Wars character, and there was a lot of heavy praise for like Hayden Christensen returning for the Obi-Wan series. For a lot of stuff that like the quote toxic fandom has ruined for so many years, I think there's a big effort to like rebuild, the reputation of these movies and these actors that I think were unduly kind of tarnished.
Yeah, it does definitely feel like it's kind of like a amending offenses, and it's nice that we've come to this place where an actor can return, albeit in a different role, but return in his case in live action, his actual face being shown, and we can celebrate his involvement in the franchise.
Yeah.
And I said I don't like Jake Lloyd's performance, but I don't put anything on Ahmed Best at all. I mean, because that is the characterization of the character. I think he did a good job for what he was told to do.
Yeah, and it's one thing to not like the character, that's fine, and if you don't like the writing, that's fine, but I don't think that should have ever come down to the actor because he plays that character wonderfully.
And controversies aside, it's a memorable character.
Yeah.
And how many actors can say that who don't even show up their face on screen?
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way in terms of the legacy of this movie, about how the backlash has affected people in a really negative way. But I mean, it wasn't all bad. I mean, this movie, for all of its warts and all of its controversies and all of its disappointments, I mean, it did create a new fandom in the young generation. I mean, and that was continued obviously with the next couple movies. But I mean, if this movie doesn't come out and reach those like reach those kids and imprint on them, then I don't think we get the love for the prequels that are prevalent today and people who have grown up with them.
Yeah, I mean, I am a Star Wars fan because of this movie.
Wow, that's great. I mean, I think at the end of the day we can disagree on what works, what doesn't work, who is doing who could be doing better with their role, who shouldn't be blamed. But at the end of the day, I mean, and not to get too soapy with this and but at the end of the day, we're all in this because we love these movies and we love these characters and we love movies in general. And just because there's disagreement or discourse, negative discourse, it doesn't mean that we have to tear each other down in that kind of way.
Yeah.
We can actually come together over these movies.
Movies bring everybody together, Tim.
Yes, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So even though this is a big linchpin for you and I have a lot of issues with this movie, I'm glad that we can talk about this in a really conducive environment and share it together. I mean, we've watched so many bad movies together, Tanner, but they're so enjoyable because we're together, and it's an experience. This movie, despite all of its flaws, is a big success for the studio, for Star Wars. it kicks it back into gear, and we do get the trilogy that Lucas envisioned in his head. Well, I mean, it doesn't stop here. Like, I mean, it'd be one thing if this movie came out and a lot of people hated it and they stopped, but it doesn't. And Star Wars, rebounds, and it goes through a lot of different phases and different legacies and eras. So like, and I think if we don't get this movie, it just becomes harder for that franchise to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
it may not be like the flashiest or the best paced. Well, I definitely think it is the flashiest. It's probably overly flashy. But yeah, for all the problems it has, I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. And it's an important piece of just pop culture history, really. Okay. So we have finished our first recap of the prequel trilogy with Phantom Menace. But before we go, let's just get into some other random stuff. So Tanner, what do you want to shout out in the world of pop culture?
I don't think I've seen anything new. Like no new releases in theaters or anything. I am currently watching Industry on HBO. I'm enjoying that. I was late to the party on that one, so I'm on season 3 now. Season 4 just finished. My trash TV is picking up. I finished season 10 of Love is Blind. Such a fan. And I started watching DTF St. Louis.
I've seen ads for that. How is that?
Good. I've only watched the first episode, but I think it'll be good. It's kind of twisty, but there's good people. Jason Bateman's always great. David Harbour, Linda Cardellini. Like, it's good.
And DTF stands for what I think it stands for in this context?
Yep.
Because I was watching the ads and I was like, wow, they called a show DTF, where the F stands for you know what, and it's just like, it's very bold. You don't see that very often.
No, but it's a murder based around this DTF app that people are using.
Oh, I do love a good murder.
We love a sexy thriller.
Well, speaking of good murders, Tanner, that's a good segue for my pop culture shout out, because I just finished both seasons of Poker Face, starring Natasha Lyonne, and I love it.
Yes, I have not watched it.
Oh, it's so good. I got Peacock pretty much just to watch it. Well, that and Ted. But so basically, Natasha Lyonne, she's playing herself basically, as she always does, and she's a character who can tell whenever anyone is lying, like implicitly. Like, doesn't matter what they're saying or their inflection. She just knows off the bat if they're lying or not, and she has to use that skill to, unravel these mysteries that she gets thrown into. And every episode there's like the supporting cast are big name celebrities. So you get like, I don't know why I'm thinking of this episode in particular, but Tim Blake Nelson is in there, is one of them. Cynthia Erivo has a whole episode to herself, pretty much. She's played like 4 different characters, like the cast. So it's always fun to see who comes in and affects stuff. And like, it's very comedic and fun. It doesn't make a lot of sense, like why this one person ends up in so many different people's like murder stories, but also like, who cares, because it's fun. The show just wrapped last year, and I think they're trying to get it. Peacock canceled it, so Ryan Johnson, who we'll talk about later on the Star Wars podcast, is trying to shop it to different studios. I really hope that someone like a Netflix picks it up, because it is a really great show. I know it's expensive without the cast, but it is one of the best shows I've seen in a while.
I will check it out. I'll put it on my list.
Yeah. Okay, well, that is it for our show today. Tune in next week for Attack of the Clones as we continue our Star Wars run through the prequel trilogy. But until then, thank you so much for listening. Please, I forgot to mention in my last 3 episodes to ask our listeners to rate, subscribe, review, which is probably a pretty important thing to ask. So please rate, subscribe, and review. It really helps our podcast grow. So you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, except for Apple right now for some reason. Anyway, so thank you so much. You can find me on Letterboxd if you want to get in contact. I'm very prevalent on that site. My username is TGMacman, TGMacman. Tanner, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram.
And you can also find us here again next week for the next episode. So we will see you then. May the Force be with you.